Welcome to T.O.L Studios, and today in Lesson 12 we're going to continue forward with what we were doing in Lessons 10 and 11, and that's where I introduced what we call Triad Chords. Go back to those lessons if you have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm assuming everybody's seen those. Triad chords just basically we're taking three notes, and I'm going to give you a better definition later, but that's the simple version. We take chords from scales we've learned, and you're going to every other note. So the first one I'd shown you was our good old C scale. Again, go back, revisit previous lessons for scales, but I'm taking the 1, 2, 3, curl under, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for your finger combination. If I'm doing the left hand, I'm just reversing it, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, crossover, which is going to be that. Okay, check out the previous videos again. By the way, too, if you're having any troubles with anything in previous videos or anything I show you here to today's lesson, you can always contact me by email if you need to. Go to my website, which is T.O.L Studios. Again, TOLstudios.com. You could go to the contact section and shoot me an email, let me know, and I can try to answer anything that way for you as well. Okay, so again, what I did on the previous two lessons, I took the C scale, and again, I was saying once you get decent enough, you'll be able to practice those together, and I recommend this, and this is what I would start doing eventually when you're able to do your scales this way. Do it a few times, then just start practicing your chords. So again, I'm taking those scale notes. When we do a chord, we're going to go every other note, so we skip, and we skip. And this is always for chords, we're going 1, 3, 5 for your fingers, or thumb, middle finger, pinky. Left hand's reverse, 5, 3, 1. So if I'm in that C scale, I'm starting on the C note, skipping the D's, E, skip the F. So that's my first chord. I'll talk about this later. We call it a major chord, and you can kind of hear it has kind of a happy sound. We'll go into this more later. I'm keeping it simple. I'm just calling it a C chord for right now. The next note, we're going up. We're hitting a D, F, and an A. Okay, and again, I'll tell you later, that's a minor chord. You can hear it's a little bit sad or dark, a little dreary. We'll talk about this later. We're just calling it a D chord right now. Next one, we're starting on E, skip the F, so we got a G and a B, so E, G, B. The next chord's going to be a F, A, C. Again, this is a good way to practice after you've done your scales. Next chord's a G, B, D. The next one's going to be a C, E. And your next one's going to be a B, D, F. And then you're basically, when you get to this last one, we're back on C. So it's going to be the same thing we started on, C, E, G. We'll talk about this a little bit more later, but we call that an octave, meaning those chords were higher than what I started on, I finished up. Okay, same letters, just the sound went up. Okay, but that's what we'll call an octave. Alright, the next scale I started talking about in lesson 11, I took the G scale, which has the F sharp. And again, I would do this over and over, same finger pattern I'm doing for the scale. Do this as many, and again, I can't stress this, go at your speed. I'm kind of just doing it to save time. Don't try to just run right into them, go fast. That comes in time, okay? That's why I'm saying these exercises will get a lot quicker the more you do them. So go through them as slow and do them repetitively over and over so you can get them, okay? Now we're taking that scale, same thing, every other note. So we're going to have a G, B, and a D for our first chord. That's our G chord. Our next one, we're going to have an A, C, and an E. Our next one, we're going to have a B, D, and an F sharp. Our next one, we're going to have a C, E, and a G. Our next one, we're going to have a D, F sharp, and an A. Our next one, which is our E chord, we're going to have an E, G, and a B, so it's E, G, B. Our last one, we're going to have an F sharp, A, C. Okay, and then you're going to finish with a G. And the same thing, that's going to be what we call an octave higher, or we finished on what we started on, just up higher. Oops, sorry. Okay, so again, that gives us a G, B, D, A, C, E, B, D, F sharp, C, E, G, D, F sharp, A, E, G, B, F sharp, A, C, G, B, D. Okay, and that again was from the G scale. Okay, so now we're going to go to a D scale, and we're going to end up with two sharps, our F sharp and C sharp. Same thing, I would practice that scale the speed you need to. One hand at a time, of course, if that's what you're still needing to do. You come over to your left hand, same thing. You might need to, this is always going to be the weaker hand, so you might need to do this one a bunch, you know, till it gets up to the part like your right hand. Then eventually you're doing these together, same finger combination. Remember when I did scales, I told you you'll almost always do the same finger combination. There's a couple scales that you sometimes need to change them to modify to your fingers because of these sharps and flats. So you've got an F sharp and a C sharp. We do our first chord, we got D, we're going to F sharp and an A. That's our D chord. When we go to the next one, we've got an E, G, and a B. And I don't know if you've noticed this yet, but you're going to start noticing, like we learned this chord in the key of C, and I'll talk about this more later, but it's just now we're learning in the D scale, and it's in a different position, but when we learned that chord in the key of C, it was the same three letters. I'll explain this more later, but what I want you to realize is sometimes you're going to start recognizing, oh yeah, I already know that chord, I've done that one before. And I'll explain this a little bit more later. So the one we're on was our E, G, and B. Okay, now we're going to have an F sharp, A, C sharp. Then we're going to have a G, B, D. Now we're going to have an A, C sharp, E. Then a B, D, oops, sorry, F sharp. So that was a B, D, F sharp. Then a C sharp, E, and a G. And same thing, we're going to finish on what we started on, the D, F sharp, A. Okay, and then as always, eventually you want to also get used to playing these backwards when you're ready. Because like anything, I always say you always see it one way. Sometimes when we're going backwards, it just looks a little funny to us getting used to seeing it. Now to save on time, I've been kind of just doing them forward. But it's just like you do your scales. I tell you then to practice them backwards, so eventually you do your chords. And this, I'm telling you, the more you do it, the quicker you'll get. Not that that's your goal, but this exercise won't take as long. And for a musician, you want to know these chords, so like that way you can react and listen to your ears, so you can hear the music talk to you. Okay, and I'll explain that more later too. If you're sight reading music, same thing, it helps you recognize all this. Now that was the key of D. If I want to go to another scale, I'm going to take the A scale, and in this scale we're going to end up with the C sharp, F sharp, the G sharp. And if you notice, I'm doing the same thing I did when I introduced scales. I'm going one scale at a time where I'm adding a sharp. So we started with no sharps, one sharp, two sharps, now I'm showing you three sharps. I'll talk about that a little bit more later, what we call this, but again, this comes, obviously I've got it memorized. That's why I know what order to tell you. I will share that with you on a later lesson. But we're going to go our scale, A, B, C sharp, then a D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. So again, if you want to see the right hand, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. Of course, practice it backwards. A, G sharp, F sharp, E, D, C sharp, B, A. If you're doing your left hand, same thing. A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, same thing backwards. I know it's the same old boring thing. Trust me, it gets so much more fun when you get this memorized. A, G sharp, F sharp, E, D, C sharp, B, A. Okay, now when you're doing your chords, I'll say the letters in them. We're starting on the A note, so we're going to have an A, C sharp, and an E. Okay, we go to our next chord. We're going to have a B, D, F sharp. Okay, we go to our next chord. We're going to have a C sharp, E, G sharp. We go to our next chord. It's going to be our D chord, D, F sharp, A. Okay, our next chord, E, it should have been G sharp, sorry about that. And again, the reason I know that, if I hit this, because we're in this scale, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. So when I just got to the chord I hit by mistake, I hit an E, going to every other note, skip F sharp. I accidentally hit a G and a B, but see, I need that G sharp. Now later I'll teach you, when you know your scales, I'll teach you when you play by ear. Sometimes you don't play that. You'll play a note that doesn't belong in scale. I'll go over this stuff later, but the more you know your scales and chords, then you can understand why music does those things. So it's kind of like I tell everybody, you learn the rules, like our English language, or any language I guess for that matter, but you learn something and then it's like you kind of spend the rest of your time finding out how you can break the rules. But it's good to know the rules so you know what your boundaries are. Okay? So let me recap that. We've got basically an A, C sharp, and an E. That's our first chord. Our next one is a B, D, F sharp. Okay, our third chord was on the C sharp, E, G sharp. Our fourth chord, or the fourth note of the scale, the D, F sharp, A. Then the one I should have hit when I made the mistake was the E, G sharp, B. Just want to make sure I didn't mess anybody up there. The next chord is a F sharp, A, C sharp. And then you're going to have a G sharp, B, D. And then you would be back to what we started on, our A, C sharp. And again, it's really good to practice those going backwards when you're ready. Okay, now again, I'm going same chord I started, A, C sharp, E. The next one going backwards was G sharp, B, D. Then I'm going to F sharp, I should have said, A, C sharp. Okay, so again, F sharp, A, C sharp. Then a E, G sharp, B. Okay, and you don't always have to hit them together. Notice how I'm kind of just walking them separate. You can do that too, whether you do it that way, or this way, or maybe you do this. You know, at your speed again, and then all those are great exercises to help memorize them. Okay, then that was an E, G sharp, B. The next one down would be D, F sharp, A. Then we would have a C sharp, E, G sharp, then a B, D, F sharp, and we would finish, that was our A, C sharp, and an E. Okay, and then again, you can eventually run them straight up, and you'll hear it, it's moving in a scale fashion. Okay, I'll teach you later on. This is what we do like in orchestra, if you're doing wind instruments, violins, cellos, vocals. This is like common in all music, not just piano. Guitar does this. So all music's following what I'm showing you. Okay, now that's our A scale. If I go to an E scale, I'm going to start on the E. It's going to give me 4 sharps. I'm going to have F sharp, G sharp, C sharp, and a D sharp. Same finger combination. At your speed again, as slow as you need to, but it gives me E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. If I go over to my left hand, I'm going to put my pinky on the E. It's going to give me my E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, cross over to the C sharp, D sharp, E. Backwards reversing, E, D sharp, C sharp, B, A, then my G sharp, F sharp, Eventually, again, you're putting them together. So see, eventually there comes a point where you're not doing the hands separate, you're just doing them nice and slow together. Okay, and as always, you do that enough, you won't have to do this that many times. Great way to stretch the fingers. Singers do these for vocal exercises. Okay, now when we do chords, just remember we got F sharp, G sharp, C sharp, D sharp. So we're starting on an E note, going to every other note in the scale again. So I skip F sharp, go to my G sharp. Now I've got, and if you remember, we just learned this chord in the key of A. Like I said, it's just in a different sequence. And if you caught that, we just learned that one in the key of A. It's just it was in a different spot. Okay, and that's why I'm saying it's a little musical trick I'll show you later on. But there's not as many chords as you think you are once you learn them. They just sometimes go in different sequences and different scales. I will promise you I'll explain this a little bit more later, but just try to watch for that. So we're on E, G sharp, B. Our second chord is going to be an F sharp, A, C sharp. Again, we just learned that one in the key of A. Then we're going to have a G sharp, B, but we want the D sharp in this scale because we have the D sharp in this scale in the key of E. Okay, so we got G sharp, B, D sharp. Okay, our next chord is A, C sharp, E. Okay, our next one is going to be a B, D sharp, F sharp. Then we're going to have a C sharp, E, G sharp. And then we're going to have our D sharp, F sharp, A. And then we're going to finish with our E chord again, the one we started on, E, G sharp, B. Okay, so again we've got E, G sharp, B, F sharp, A, C sharp, G sharp, B, D sharp, A, C sharp, E, B, B, D sharp, F sharp, C sharp, E, G sharp, D sharp, F sharp, A, finish with back to what we started on, E, G sharp. Okay, and then eventually you could practice those. You know, you don't have to hit them separate like I was, but again, you can. Actually, that's exactly how I learned them at first, hitting them all together. I've got some of my students that'll go like, and then they'll go like. That's a great exercise too, because it's still, you know, kind of, so you can do these a bunch of different ways, just driving them home so you memorize. Okay, that's your E scale. The last scale I wanted to talk about is the B scale, and we're going to have 5 sharps: C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp. Same finger pattern, so B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B. Go to my left hand, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B. Same old thing. Now it's a harder scale, more sharps. So just go slow, but till you can get those fingers cooperating together. Okay, you do those as many times. Like I said, so it's mainly again so you can just see those scales and you see those 5 sharps in here. Now when we do the chords, we're doing the same thing. We start on our B. We're going to skip the C sharp and go to D sharp. So it gives us a B, D sharp, F sharp. That's our B chord. And again, we just learned that one in the key of E. Then we've got a C sharp, E, G sharp. Okay. And then we've got a D sharp, F sharp, and now we're going to have an A sharp. Okay, and then we're going to have an E, G sharp, B, then an F sharp, A sharp, then our C sharp, then a G sharp, B, D sharp, then we're going to finish with our A sharp, C sharp, and an E, which finishes with our B, D sharp, F sharp. Okay, and the same thing, you eventually practice these chords running them up. So again, I've got B, D sharp, F sharp, C, E, G sharp. Now I'm going to have a Sorry, now again, what I did there, I forgot to put that A sharp in there. So again, it's real good to know that scale. That way you'll start to catch that there. Everybody makes mistakes, so you want D sharp, F sharp, A sharp's what I should have hit there. Okay? If you don't know that scale, you won't see that. E, G sharp, B, F sharp, A sharp, C sharp, G sharp, B, D sharp, A sharp, C sharp, E, finish on your B, D sharp, F sharp. Okay, and then same thing, you want to practice that one backwards too, okay? So I'm going to kind of wrap it up there. There's another sharp scale I'll introduce, the F sharp. If you remember when we did scales, I did this too, so I can include it with the G flat scale, and I'll explain that a little bit more later. I can't stress, go back if you don't know the scales and you need it slower, revisit the previous lessons. As far as chords, I started that on lesson 10 and 11. Also remember, if you have questions, you need to email me. You can do so at TOLstudios.com. Go over these. I'm going to start the next lesson trying to show you the flat scales. And then I'm telling you, the fun starts. You see me in one video talking about chords where we can start, here's like in the key of C, a C chord, up to a G chord. And I'm going to start showing you how you can, like how we group chords together, and these are called inversions. I'll explain this more, but it's where you're taking the chords, how I'm showing you, and changing the notes out of order. I'll explain this much more later, I promise. But all the fun starts from here. I can start showing you rock and roll, blues, country, gospel music, jazz. There's a lot of similarity, and it's off these basic scales I'm talking about. And then I can start showing you the blues scales, the rock scales, and how it all comes from this foundation. You just gotta trust me and do the work like I had to learn to do too, okay? Promise you it gets much funner. Have some fun. Look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.